Good morning, everyone. I'm Daniel Broniatowski, the director of the Maestro Musicians Academy. We are a music school that serves the greater Boston area with 3 locations in Lexington, Bedford, and Walpole, Massachusetts. And we also serve the world via the World Wide Web with online music lessons. Every month, we have a video cast where we talk about different topics that are hopefully of interest to you. Either you are considering having your child join our crew to start music lessons for the first time, or perhaps you are a seasoned veteran whose child has been taking lessons for a long time in our program and just need a little bit of advice as to how to make the most out of your music lessons. So today's topic is, how do I keep my child engaged? This is a very complex and big topic because there are actually many answers that will vary depending on your family's unique circumstance and also your child's unique interests. So I'm going to touch upon a bunch of topics, but we're only going to really skim and scratch the surface of what it is that will work for any individual person. And if you have specific comments or questions, please feel free to write in the section below. So before we start, a very quick plug. Our website is maestromusicians.com. That's maestromusicians.com. And you can find out all about our different locations by visiting that website. So, so today what we're talking about specifically is actually 2 different topics here, because keeping a child engaged is not only about being engaged with, playing the instrument at home and practicing every day, but also being engaged in the lessons. So there are 2 main issues here to separate out. One is, how does someone, a student, stay involved with the learning process while at the lesson? And then once they have gone to the lesson, how do they take home what they have learned in order to make sense out of what they have done in a way that's meaningful to them? So we're going to start first with the lesson structure and how to keep children engaged before we even delve into the next topic, because we would not do this topic justice if we did not cover both scenarios. So as a music school, our primary job is to provide a relationship between the student and the teacher and the parent that is fruitful, worthwhile, and productive. That is our job. But then beyond that, we also have to kind of be the glue as to what makes that relationship stay together. So that glue actually comes from us, comes from the parents, and comes from the student. So what do I mean? Why am I talking about glue? Well, basically what happens is that if Johnny goes to a lesson, and let's say he's learning Twinkle Little Star for the first time, whether it's on violin, piano, any instrument, kazoo, there has to first be a certain spark. There has to be a certain element of interest that's going to make him want to come back every week. And likewise, there has to be a certain element of interest from our teachers that's going to engage Johnny so that he wants to really come back and feel that what he's doing has a purpose. So how do we do that? Well, first of all, the personality of the instructor has to be complementary and engaging and inspiring to the student. And at the same time, the student has to be receptive to what is being taught. So in an ideal situation, and I know some of your parents are starting to roll your eyes now, in an ideal situation, the kid is interested, he's the model ideal student, he is ready to go, or she, and just can't wait to come. All right, now to the real world. So let's take the topic out of music lessons for a minute. When we go to, when kids go to school, in the public school, private school, and they're learning math, science, social studies, whatever they learn, they might not necessarily want to be there, but they know that it's expected of them. And as parents, we don't even ask the question, is my child really engaged? No, we say, how can we help our child to do well in a given topic, because we want him or her to succeed and get good grades And then we must ask the question, why are they getting good grades? What's the point? Well, ultimately, the point is we want to create well-rounded individuals who can converse with other people and have many things in common, so that they are joining a part of our general culture, so that we are able to create successful adults who can be in a world that will ultimately shape the next generation and be able to provide better and better things for the following generations. Now, why am I telling you all this? Because music lessons are the same. When we, as a school, provide you, our loyal viewers, with music lessons, what we're doing is we are ultimately doing the same thing. We are imparting a culture of music that ultimately will create a language for your children that will allow them to express themselves in a way that is meaningful. So that starts in the very first lesson. When we want to engage children in that first lesson, we have to engage them with words, because our teachers have to be able to inspire them enough so that they feel they can take ownership themselves and want to do it. This is a little bit different than social studies or math, because we recognize fully that in a one-to-one environment, kids might not necessarily have that connection with the teacher. And that's why we as an organization make it our mission to be able to foster that relationship and be able to create a relationship that is so fruitful that the kids do want to come back every week. Now, parents, this is where you come in. After we have done our part, you've got to do your part. So what does that mean? Well, it means that if you know your child is able to be engaged and is able to hold attention, well, this is where you come in and support them. You can support them by sitting in on the lessons. Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. It depends on the dynamic. You can support them by encouraging them to practice at home, explaining to them why it's important. Now, of course, a 6-year-old kid is not going to be able to necessarily have the patience or the ability yet to practice that regularly, and that's okay. But what is more important is treating the whole situation as an adventure. Whereas you as a parent, if you feel enthusiastic and you feel that this music is important to you, there is a certain level of osmosis that will trickle down. And there are many kids who are so passionate about music that you just play something and they're just happy to listen to it in the background, maybe on the way to school. Maybe let them choose from a certain playlist. And if you need some ideas, please contact me. I'm happy to give you some suggestions. So that is one way we can keep kids engaged. Then on top of that, we also recognize that there are teachers who are better for some kids versus other kids. Some students need a teacher who is very firm. Other kids need a teacher who is very sensitive. We tend to run the gamut in our school of teachers who fit both. Most of them fit, somewhere in the middle between the two, and they can tailor their needs. But we also do have teachers who can very much go one way or the other way, depending on what you need. So that's how that's the short and quick summary of how we engage students during the lessons. Now, next question, and this is the $64 million question, which we often get asked when it comes to how to keep kids engaged at home to practice. Now we're going to get into some territory here, which is really important. And it's related to what we were just talking about, but we're talking now about the home environment, which is going to be different depending on every student and their family. First and foremost, before we can even get into the nuts and bolts and the philosophy of everything, your child needs a quiet place that they can practice their instrument, where they won't be disturbed, where they'll be able to just come and go as they please, maybe having the instrument out at any time that they feel is the right time for them. Now, there are kids who are not able to do that. They'll just let the instrument sit there and it'll collect dust. Okay, so what do you do in that situation? When that happens, and if that's your kid and you know your kid can do this, but they're just not wanting to do it, first and foremost, don't be afraid of your child. There are parents countless times who say to me, I'm so afraid that my child is not going to be able to practice. They're not going to like it. It's just going to be something we're going to try, and then they're going to just kind of lose interest. Okay, there are kids who fit that description, and there's nothing you can do as a parent. Fair enough. But it's really important before you even get to that mindset, which you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot before you've started. Before you get to that mindset, it's really important that you also recognize where this insecurity is coming from. Did you have a bad experience maybe when you were younger? There are many kids who did, many adults who did. If you had that bad experience, please don't translate it into what your child is going to experience. We as a school do not want you to have that experience. It is so important. So let's get past that psychological barrier now. So let's say that your child really is not a self-starter. Let's say your child takes lessons and has an assignment book. This is what you should do this week. This is what you should do this day, 15 minutes a day, whatever it is that our teacher has assigned. What do you do if your child isn't doing it? Well, what would you do if your child wasn't doing math homework? You would sit with them and you would make sure they do it. It's not necessarily pleasant. There might be some battles in some rare or maybe not so rare instances. But if your child really can do it, if you know they can do it because you've seen them be able to sit in a lesson and it's not a battle with the teacher, then they actually need you to step up to the plate. They need you to say, okay, I believe in you. We're going to sit down and figure this out together. And here's the really good news. Even if music is completely foreign to you and you say, I'm not a musical person, I have no idea what's going on. The method books for kids are so self-explanatory. And even if they're not, ask the teacher. They'll help you figure it out because there are so many diagrams and charts. Put your fingers here. This is your first finger, or these are your first fingers. These are your second fingers, third fingers. I'm talking about piano. In violin, it's different. In violin, this is your first finger. These are your second fingers, third fingers, fourth fingers. So that's where you as a parent hold the glue together. We were talking about this concept of glue. So the teacher holds the glue together in the relationship by being motivating and giving the right balance of firmness versus sensitivity. Some may be very far on one end of the spectrum, and that's fine. Parents have that glue where they have the can-do attitude for their kids. Sometimes maybe they need to be a little bit more firm. Sometimes maybe not at all. Sometimes they should not be in the picture at all. It depends on the unique relationship. And then finally, so we talked about parents, teachers, and then students. That's the third component. So how do students fit in here? Well, I'm not going to deny the fact that a child, especially when we're talking about expressive arts, which is what we do, needs to feel that what he or she is doing is contributing to something that makes them happy. Because ultimately we make music to make us happy and to make other people happy. Happiness means different things. Sometimes, and I'm going to kind of go out on a tangent here, when you're talking about music for adults that is maybe expressing other things that are not happy, like pain. There's a lot of that in classical music of the 20th century, particularly. Then we're talking about meaning instead of happiness. But let's talk about happiness for kids because that's what they want and that's what they need. A child is too young to understand what meaning is in music from the adult standpoint. So where I'm going with this is that how do we make the music meaningful for kids? Well, the way to do it, when your child was 2 or 3 years old, you didn't even think about it. You might have maybe 1 year old or 1 day old. You were singing nursery rhymes and the child was just kind of absorbing it in, making smiles and cute goo-goos and gagas. And while this was all going on, the child was also maybe trying to imitate you with mouth movements, watching your mouth while he or she was trying to imitate the same things. As they got older, they would imitate the sounds, they would imitate the syllables. Now, we outgrow that at a certain time. And there are kids, though, who really naturally need to be expressive. Those are often our ideal students because it almost is not like we have to sell them music lessons. They just know that's what they need to do. But not every child will do that. I'll give you another example. I have seen students who are naturally talented on the inside where they can carry a tune, but they might not feel the need to express themselves, but we as parents might know and teachers might know that this particular student needs to develop hand-eye coordination, finger strength, all kinds of things like that. So how do they find it meaningful? Especially if they're not necessarily looking to express themselves. Well, this particular kind of child will find music meaningful when he or she gets that trophy for performing in a recital, or when he or she can see that they can play something that they've struggled but overcome. And it might take time and patience. And going back to this glue analogy here, you as the parent need to stick with your child if that's the case. I'm giving you harder examples that are more difficult for certain children, because I'm really speaking here to parents who need this video the most. You know, to be honest, if your child is naturally expressive and kind of just gravitates to the violin or the piano and wants to practice, you're not going to be watching this video. That's why I'm bringing in the more difficult, complicated scenarios. So I conclude this video by really saying, have some grit and determination. Don't be afraid of your child maybe struggling a little bit if you are in the situation that I just talked about, where you know that lessons are right for him or her, but it's not coming naturally or easy. And I will also say that if things are too hard and your child is getting frustrated and losing interest because of that, we switch teachers, or we switch the methodology or the approach, and we'll make it happen. We'll make it work. This is probably the most important thing, is that there's that constant line of communication, so that there's never any kind of unknowns when it comes to what one party in the three-person relationship, parent, teacher, student, should be doing. Thank you very much for listening to my videocast today. Again, I'm Daniel Broniatowski, maestromusicians.com. If you liked our video, please leave some comments in the comment section below, and we look forward to hearing